remember to have a long view. You can worry about what you're going to do next week, and you can say, I don't have time to do this because I've got all these things going on next week, and there will always be that next week. But if you will say, I'm going to take a day and a half and I'm going to be there, I'm going to participate. If you do that, that's going to impact not next week, not just next week, but it's going to impact next year and the year after that. A lot of my wonderful client opportunities have come about because of my participation in these bar activities. Think of AI as your tireless general magistrate, because judges all the time send a problem to a general magistrate. They ask the general magistrate to hear the testimony, make the decision. You're still making the decision, but allow yourself to use the tools that exist. And it needs to be a closed system. I'm certainly not the brightest guy in the room, but I don't think many people will outwork me. And that comes at a price. It's a lot of hours at what I do. I think probably the primary attribute is hard work and letting clients know you care.
Welcome, everyone, to the Collier County Bar Association podcast, powered by Beyond the Briefcase. I'm your host, Matthew Goodwin, and yes, I broke out the tie for this one. When you're sitting across from a diamond sponsor, you got to look the part. Today, I'm honored to be joined by attorney Laird Lile, one of the most respected names in Florida's trust and estate law community. Laird has built an incredible career defined by precision, integrity, and mentorship, values that don't just strengthen his firm, but the entire Collier County legal community. He's been recognized time and again among Florida Trend's legal elite, best lawyers in America, and has served on multiple state and national committees shaping the future of estate practice. But beyond the credentials, Laird is known for his generosity with younger attorneys, his professionalism, and his unwavering commitment to excellence. As a long-standing diamond sponsor of the Collier County Bar Association, his support has helped make platforms like this podcast possible, connecting our members and spotlighting the heart of our profession here in Southwest Florida. Today, we're diving into what it means to build a true legacy in practice, in mentorship, and in life with the one and only Laird Lile. So Laird, welcome. It's an honor to have you here today.
Great to be here. Thank you. That might be a better eulogy for me than an introduction on this podcast, but congrats to you, Matt, for getting this podcast going, for your commitment to the Collier County Bar. It's a great service. I know you're having a good time doing it.
Thank you. I sure am. And I've seen you active in the community for years and have wanted to sit down and have a conversation like this for a while. So I'm really honored to be here today to have that.
Well, it's my privilege to be here and participate.
Well, thanks again. So we're just going to jump right in. We're going to talk about your practice, and then we'll talk more about what you're doing to shape the community. What first drew you into wills, trust, and estates?
Yeah, so I'm fine with talking about the practice, but I do want our focus to be the profession today. So I'll respond to a couple of these openings about the practice, because it is a wills, trust, estates centric practice. It really began when a long time ago. My father was a small town lawyer, 12,000 people in the town. He practiced all kinds of stuff, but when I would help him at his office with the estate matters, it seemed like it was a really an area just drew me, that I was drawn to, and then the tax issues embedded in that, and you're way too young to remember a TRS 80, but that was the Radio Shack first model of computer, and the computer storage device was a cassette player. So there was no random access, it was all sequential access.
Okay.
And that computer had 4K of RAM.
It was big at the time.
It was huge. And one of the first programs I wrote was to calculate estate tax. So and I would have been 16 at that time, something like that. So it was sort of destined to be. But the other big break that I had was the first law firm that I worked at in Miami. And that set me on a path to be able to work in some very interesting wills, trusts, and estates issues.
Very good. Well, how has your view of legacy evolved since you started your career?
It's funny you mentioned that word. This morning's Naples Daily News front page has an article about my interpretation of Fernandez's take on it was the overuse of the word legacy. So maybe we have an overuse of it here. I don't know that I think of myself as building a legacy. It's nice if some people do, but it's really just working very hard for the people who entrust their legal matters with me trying to set an example for the profession, and then trying to help the profession. And I've had a lot of opportunities to do so, and I hope that I've helped along the way. So
Well, so what qualities or values have sustained your success over time?
yeah, you know, I'm certainly not the brightest guy in the room, but I don't think many people will outwork me. So, and that comes at a price. It's a lot of hours at what I do. If I didn't love it, I couldn't spend this many hours. But that's I think probably the primary attribute is hard work and letting clients know you care.
Well, you have a mentorship program, this fellowship.
So yeah, so I've been involved in a couple of mentorship type of programs. I started maybe 10 or 15 years ago a program that was dubbed at the time um, uh, a resident at law, and so the idea was to think of the medical profession. You're married to a doctor, you know better than most how the residency program works, and you also have an appreciation for how much better the medical profession does in transitioning from classroom to practice than the law profession does. And so that was my premise, and I started a program, and it's not continued. It needs to continue in a much bigger way. But it was essentially to bring a brand new lawyer in. 18 months was the term, and they would work really hard for that 18 months. They would be paid. Um, uh, I based it on the pay of an assistant public defender or assistant state attorney in this area, and they would, at my expense, attend bar meetings locally and in the state. Because what I wanted to do was to instill a commitment to the profession and to have those opportunities. And that worked for a while, but it was taking a lot of my time in terms of really trying to train and deal with the people. So I pivoted in about 10 years ago, focused on a wider reaching mentoring type of program that is now run by the American College of Trust and Estates Council, and it's in Florida. It's called the Florida Fellows Institute,
Okay.
and there are those institute programs now in 7 different locations around the country, and it's really heart warming to see the students go through those programs, get them exposure to top notch lectures, and to instill in them some sense of community.
Well, it's one thing to build a strong practice, but it's another to build strong people, strong lawyers, and you've done
Sure,
both.
sure. To the extent that I've influenced some strong lawyers along the way, then I'm very happy about that.
Well, um, how so we're going to transition a little bit in terms of the bar's role in the legal community.
Okay.
Um, I want to know how your involvement in the Collier County Bar Association has impacted your professional journey.
Sure. So being part of the small group back on Fifth Avenue South at the time when there weren't many sections of the Carter County Bar, group of us got together and formed the Wills Trust and Estates section, Trust and Estates section, I guess it's called, of the Carter County Bar. And so that was really good from a local standpoint. But the way that the Collier County Bar helped me the most in my professional development in terms of the bar was by the membership failing to elect me to the local board, and so that was a race. Lisa was on staff at the time. She assures me it was a close outcome, but I was not on the winning side of that. I thought, well, okay, well, if I can't serve on the local board, maybe I'll try the state board of governors. And so I was successful in a contested race for the state Board of Governors, and then ended up serving on that for 18 years, which is way longer than anybody should serve. 9 2-year terms. It was a long time. Our current member is representative is John Agnew, great lawyer from Fort Myers. And one of the things that happened during that period of time is that we had 2 representatives from the 20th Judicial Circuit. So the 5 counties that make up the 20th, we had 2. But every year there's a look at how the lawyer population around the state goes, and there's reapportionment. And the lawyers that flocked to Miami during COVID drove the numbers up so high there that they got another seat and we lost our seat.
Oh man,
One
so
of our
there's only
2
one
seats.
here.
And so there's only one from the
Ooh, that's
20th
tough.
right now. It is. It's a big circuit and a lot to cover.
Well, do you see that second seat coming back now? The population's double what it was then?
And it's not just the population, it's the lawyer population. And so all the law firms that national offices that have been opening offices in
Yeah.
Miami,
It's no longer a representative sample of
it,
the population of
it,
attorneys.
it may not be, but no, I don't see us getting two members again.
Oh, we got another DCA.
Yes, we did.
So maybe they're on to something in the future. Well, I look at, I remember seeing all of the emails that you would write from the Florida Board of Governors and think, God, this guy must never sleep.
That was staff making us look good.
Okay, well, all of our staff makes us look good.
Yes, they do.
That's why we have them, and we try to give credit where credit's due. If we could put their names on things, we do,
Right.
and things like that. Well, I want to talk about the importance of maintaining community among local attorneys, especially post-pandemic.
Okay.
It's been harder to do that. Court is now, there's a lot of Zoom conferences now. You're
Right.
not seeing as many lawyers in the courtroom together, so you're not seeing the collegiality or the opportunities in the hallway. I know I don't have a court practice. I know that you go to court more than most trust and estates attorneys, but
I
let's talk about that
yeah,
for a
I think you've identified a very important issue. And it's all of the Zoom things that we do now instead of getting together in person. Mediations, for instance, I'm not a fan of Zoom mediations, but there's a lot of very good mediators that very successfully resolve cases through Zoom mediations.
Hmm.
But I do think you're losing something, um, I understand and appreciate from the client standpoint how cost is less when for a 5 minute hearing you're sitting in your office, you throw a jacket and tie on, you're in court, as opposed to the hour that you might have to allow, even in Collier County and from your office here, the lovely North Naples area. It's still by the time you allow for parking and allow to be sure you get through security and get to the courtroom on time, you'd have to allow an hour. And so that means 2 hours and
Round trip.
versus yeah
I, I
versus 10 or 15 minutes.
I have a flat fee practice, but I believe the hourly attorneys will make up for that time in
Right.
other ways. So it's not necessarily going to spill over to as a benefit to the client,
Well, it may be that
presumptively.
yeah, it may be that they end up making up for the time on working on more and different matters too. So I'm not concerned
Hmm.
from the lawyer standpoint as much as I think that one of the reasons that a lot of lawyers like it and a lot of judges like it is because they can manage their caseload. But I do think there needs to be a balance, and I hope to see more lawyers at the courthouse.
Well, what advice do you have for both senior and junior attorneys in this area? So since they're not, whether they have a court practice or not, how do they get out there more?
Sure, and that
To,
brings us back to the Carter County Bar. The number of events that this local bar association is responsible for holds, there is something for everybody. There's a lot of things for everybody, from the social events to the continuing education lunch events to the day-long seminars they have. Get involved in the Carter County Bar.
well, when Lisa and I launched this podcast, we talked about reconnecting our members
Right.
and showcasing leadership in our community. You've modeled that from the start.
You're correct.
Um, when we look at the future of estate practice and how technology is reshaping estate administration, what are your thoughts on that as far as new challenges or opportunities facing estate attorneys?
Yeah, so another major change in the estate world is the increased exemption, and so the estate tax exemption. It used to be that a lot of estate planners would need to worry about estate taxes. If you had an exemption as low as $600,000, which was about the number that was in existence when I moved to Naples.
Mhm.
You had a lot of people that, when you were planning their estates, you need to be sensitive to estate taxes. The exemption has now been leveled off at $15 million per person beginning in just 6 weeks. And that takes a lot of people, even in Naples, that takes a lot of people out of the concern of needing to plan for estate taxes. And that I think that means that the estate planners now will have a lot more leeway in terms of how they deliver their services. They won't have to be as often focused on estate taxes. From a technology standpoint, AI is here. I'm very proud of the Florida Bar for adopting an AI policy that does not, and some people wanted the initial version essentially be, don't use AI. You're terrible. You're going to be disciplined if you use AI. That's silly. It needs to be used properly. You can think of it as an associate. I was at a meeting of the Florida Court Technology Commission last week, and we talked in our long-range planning session. We talked about how AI might work, and there were some judges who, don't take the decision making away from us, and I get that, but I analogized it, Matt, to a general magistrate, because judges all the time send a problem to a general magistrate. They ask the general magistrate to hear the testimony, make the decision, and then to write a recommended report and propose findings. And that comes back to the judge. Well, think of AI as your tireless general magistrate.
I like that. I never thought of it that way.
Because you're still making the decision, but allow yourself to use the tools that exist. And it needs to be a closed system. We talked about, taking all of the Florida law and whatever form it is and having a closed system so the judges would have access to that. And one of the points I made rather emphatically during this is that the one thing that lawyers want and the people deserve is predictability. And if you have a set of tools like AI, like a closed AI system can provide,
Right.
you ought to get predictability when you run the same set of facts through.
True.
Right.
So this at its infant stages from the Florida bar's policy perspective.
Well, and so that's not Florida Bar. That's the court system actually.
Okay.
So the Florida Bar continues to be, I think, very out in front in terms of helping members understand the pros and cons, the dangers, the hazards. And there are hazards. If you just throw into a court filing what AI gives you without checking it, just like you could be in trouble for throwing the same thing from a junior lawyer, and there are bad citations that don't exist, happens all the time, you're going to be disciplined, and you should be disciplined.
Yeah.
Where I was focusing, and I want to talk about this a bit, Matt.
Yes, please.
In terms of the opportunities I've had for bar service, not just within the bar. So 18 years on the Board of Governors is a long time. But the other opportunities I've had have been to assist the court. And when I say the court, I mean the Florida Supreme Court, which is the group that really is responsible for management of all of the judicial processes in the state of Florida. And a long time ago, long before there was e-filing, I was asked by then Chief Justice George LaBarga to serve in the Florida Court Technology Commission, which was fascinating. And it was when it was just being formed. It's a commission that exists under rule, so it's created by rule. And there are a lot of technology people, clerks of court, judges from different levels, and a few practicing lawyers, only a couple practicing lawyers. And I've been on that since its inception. And seeing what e-filing has been able to do to the practice of law in Florida is just amazing, and I'm so proud to have been a part of that.
So how does somebody get involved in that? As opposed to those civil servants, like life civil servants.
Yeah.
We don't want just those people.
No, so the way you get involved is you show up. And you show up at meetings of all types. So state, I've spent most of my time in the state being involved in the real property, probate and trust law section.
Okay.
But every practice area has its own section, the Florida Bar.
So you mean just show up to the executive committees?
Show up to those meetings, show up to the committee meetings, raise your hand that you want to be involved in a project, and people will realize that you'd like to contribute. And from there, all kinds of doors will open.
What about the objection? Well, I just don't have time for that.
Well, we all, as I have told my children for a long time, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and it's just a matter of how you choose to use them.
So that's actually good advice. It's a good starting point. You just you calendar the section meetings that apply to your practice area, or maybe one you're interested in, and you just show up. Now,
and on that point, show up in person. A lot of them will be available by Zoom.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because
if you don't show up in person, you can't walk out in the hallway. You can't have a soft drink with other people, get to know them. It's just you will get something out of showing up electronically by Zoom, but you will not have the same opportunities if that's the only way you participate.
So, people like you and I that have been involved, you more so than me, in these state efforts. Where does the younger lawyer where would they see the benefit in doing that aside from meeting some more lawyers? Could they actually have an effect on the change in these laws in the state?
Sure. I mean, because most of my time has been spent in the real property, probate, and trust law section, I can only really speak primarily from the view of that section.
Hmm.
But there's no law in the state of Florida that's considered by the legislature involving those practice areas that the section's not involved in.
And what do you attribute Chief Justice or Justice Labarga at the time coming to you? How do you think he found you and chose you?
So he found me through a mutual friend who was then president of the Florida Bar. And it was because I was on the board of governors that I got to know that person. And he went to that person and said, I need somebody to do this. And so, like, well, here he is.
Yeah. Well, we all want to know what's in it for us when we
Well,
put our time and energy into something.
we do. And I can encourage our listeners to remember to have a long view. The long view always ends up turning out best in the end run. So you can worry about what you're going to do next week, and you can say, I don't have time to do this because I've got all these things going on next week, and there will always be that next week. But if you will say, I'm going to take a day and a half and I'm going to juggle my schedule. In today's world, you can be in your laptop in your hotel room at night. You can make phone calls during breaks, but I'm going to go and I'm going to be there. I'm going to participate. If you do that, that's going to impact not next week, not just next week, but it's going to impact next year and the year after that. And there's no doubt that a lot of my uh, wonderful client opportunities have come about because of my participation in these bar activities.
Now, see, that's encouraging, right?
I mean,
More participation means
right,
more business.
right.
Well, you had mentioned that you wanted to talk about a couple of things today, not be the focus on you and your practice, even though we're really interested in hearing about it. What are some of the things that you wanted to talk
Well,
more about?
yeah. So the big ones are the bar service and the way to accomplish that. Showing up, we just talked about.
Local bar, state bar, both.
Both, both. I mean, the local bar is a great way to build local relationships, particularly if you're in a specialized practice area. And don't just go if you're wills and trust. Don't just go to the trust and estate section. Get involved in INSA court. You say, "Oh, the INSA court's just litigation." Yeah, you'll be the only trust and estate lawyer in the room. That's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, well, I can speak from experience. I did INSA court at UF Law,
Okay,
and I was one of the only two law students in the entire room.
right.
And then when I got to Collier County 2015, I joined the INSA court as a non-litigator. And just like you say,
The only one there.
I was the only one there. And it took me, so I was an older attorney. Some of these younger attorneys might not necessarily see that unless they had someone take them under their wing and say, look, this will help you,
Right.
and here's why, and just show up. But what you're saying is show up, raise your hand,
Sure.
and get involved, whether that's at the state level, local level. But I, you know, be intentional about scheduling it on your calendar.
You have to put it on the calendar and consider it a commitment just like your other commitments.
Yeah. Well, we get so caught up in this, there's personal and professional development, right? I like to think, and maybe you have something to say on this, that just being involved in these committees is a form of your professional development. Even though you're not getting CLE credit for showing up and attending, it's going to spill over into those other areas where you'll learn about things and it'll be easier to sift through the jargon when the time comes.
Yeah, I'm not a good one to talk about the difference between personal and professional development because I'm not I don't have much personal development, but on the professional development, I think I've done quite a bit. And you're absolutely right. It's the I never go to one of those meetings when I don't come back with something like, this might impact how I'm dealing with that client. Even today, after being in a whole lot of meetings over a whole lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
And my first board of governors meeting, I'd been going to all these real property, probate, and trust law section meetings. I always came back with somebody who used my practice. And I remember very clearly the first board of governors meeting, the only thing I left there that I could use my practice is do not put pit bull on your letterhead.
Or at AOL.com.
Yeah.
I've seen, and forgive me if you have an AOL address, but I look at the pledge that we took of civility and professionalism, and and anytime I see a lawyer on their letterhead using AOL and all this talk about the appearance of professionalism, I always cringe a little bit. Gmail too, especially with the email security and stuff.
Because you're suggesting it's pretty darn easy to get a domain name.
Well, yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Right.
It's really easy.
Right.
And so I have an IT background. I built my own website 11 years ago. I learned how to administrate Microsoft Office, and now it helps me engage the right help so I know the right questions to ask. I'm no longer doing some of these things on my own.
Right.
But and you don't want to become, the jack of all trades, but you got to think of the basics. And your email should match your website, if nothing else.
Right.
It's from a professional
Yeah.
standpoint.
And Legal Fuel, which is a service of the Florida Bar, has a lot of assistance for people who don't have the tech background, but will help
That's a good
them
point.
get some exposure so they can at least understand some of the jargon and know to ask the questions.
Well, so you started your law firm a long time ago, and do you ever find yourself going back to the Legal Fuel for new ideas?
We were looking at it for something the last month or so, and so if the point that you're getting at is it just for new lawyers? No, there's good stuff on there all the way around. The e-portal has videos, and so to the extent that you're not sure about some e-filing issues and e-service issues, and let me make this point. Most of the lawyers listening to this will have people in their office that do the e-filing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Just once next week, when you ask that assistant to e-file something for you, pull up the chair and look over her shoulder and ask her to go, I'm being stereotypical here, ask her to go through that process slowly enough so that you can see it happen. Because it'll be helpful to you in the long run to have a better appreciation for how that goes down.
That's good advice. And if you don't do that, then do it yourself.
Well, even better to figure out how to do it yourself.
Well, so we do real estate closings. More than half of my practice consists of that. And once every month or two, I'm asked to do a signing with somebody. And I'm always appreciative having sat down with that 100+ page loan package and going through those disclosures where we start to take it for granted. And then you think, all right, I have it signed. Now what?
Right.
Well, now I have to say, do you give it to her or him? And then what do they do?
What do they do with it? Right.
So then you can estimate the time involved. It gives you more appreciation for your support staff.
You bet. And we should all appreciate our support staff.
Yeah, we should. And I mean, without them, we wouldn't be the lawyers that we could meet today.
No doubt.
I can go off so many different topics with you because you're a lawyer and I feel like I can do that. But I want to also respect your time and cover anything. And we can do this again, too, in the future.
Fair enough.
We have a long list of sponsors. You, as the long-serving diamond sponsor of the Collier County Bar, we wanted to give you the opportunity to talk first.
Thank you.
And if you don't have anything else you'd like to offer today.
Nothing else from me. I appreciate the time, man.
Well, thank you for your time and your leadership and your continued support of the Collier County Bar Association. And I want to know, how can listeners find more about you? Do they just go on? What's your website?
It's cleverly named, called LairdALile.com.
Okay. We'll have that included there in the notes. And up next, we're going to be talking with another voice from our Collier County Bar Association community who's helping shape the next chapter of law in Southwest Florida. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next time, we'll see you then.